Imagine two companies that helped build the modern internet. Every day, newspapers, websites, television networks, advertisers, filmmakers, and businesses around the world search for one thing before publishing a story or launching a campaign: images. Behind many of those images are two names that have dominated the industry for decades: Getty Images and Shutterstock. Then came artificial intelligence. Suddenly, the entire business model that made these companies successful began to change. The response seemed obvious: join forces, create a giant powerful enough to survive the AI era. Instead, the deal collapsed, not because the companies changed their minds, not because investors walked away, but because one regulator believed the merger would give too much power to a single company. This is the story of the $3.7 billion merger that never happened. To understand why this deal mattered, we first need to understand the business. Getty Images was founded in the 1990s with a simple mission: build the world's largest professional image library. Over the years, it acquired photography agencies, exclusive archives, sports photographers, entertainment photographers, and editorial collections. If a newspaper needed photos from the Olympics, a presidential election, or a natural disaster, Getty was often one of the first places editors searched. Shutterstock arrived later with a different approach. Instead of focusing mainly on exclusive premium collections, it built a massive marketplace where photographers, illustrators, videographers, and artists could upload content and earn royalties whenever customers downloaded their work. Millions of contributors joined. Millions of images followed. Eventually, the two companies became giants in the licensed visual content industry. Although they competed, they also shaped the market together. One specialized in premium editorial photography. The other became famous for enormous commercial libraries. For years, this business looked incredibly stable. Businesses always needed images. News organizations always needed photographs. Advertising agencies always needed visuals. Then AI arrived. Generative AI completely changed the economics of creating images. Instead of licensing an existing photograph, users could simply describe what they wanted: a mountain at sunrise, a futuristic office, a smiling family having dinner. Within seconds, AI could generate something that looked convincing. The cost was dramatically lower. The speed was dramatically faster. For many customers, especially small businesses, that changed everything. Instead of searching through millions of stock images, they could create something unique. Almost overnight, investors started questioning the future of traditional stock image companies. Getty and Shutterstock understood the threat. Neither company could simply ignore AI. Both invested in artificial intelligence. Both launched AI-powered tools. Both signed licensing agreements designed to ensure creators were compensated when AI systems used licensed content. But there was another strategy: scale. In early 2025, Getty Images announced plans to acquire Shutterstock in a deal valued at approximately $3.7 billion. The combined company would become one of the largest visual content businesses in the world. Executives argued that combining their libraries, technologies, and customer bases would make both companies stronger. The timing made sense. Competition was no longer coming only from traditional rivals. Now they faced AI image generators capable of producing endless content at almost zero marginal cost. If the future required enormous investments in technology, perhaps becoming larger was the only realistic option. Wall Street understood the logic. Bigger companies often have more negotiating power. They can reduce duplicate costs. They can combine research teams. They can invest more heavily in new technology. On paper, the merger looked attractive. But mergers of this size almost always attract regulators, especially when the companies involved already dominate an important market. That is exactly what happened. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority, better known as the CMA, began investigating the transaction. The regulator was not primarily worried about commercial stock photos. Its biggest concern involved editorial content. Editorial photography is different from ordinary stock images. These are photographs used by newspapers, broadcasters, magazines, and news websites. Breaking news, political events, sporting competitions, celebrities, natural disasters, historic moments. Media organizations depend on reliable suppliers that can quickly deliver authentic editorial images. According to the CMA, Getty and Shutterstock were among the very few meaningful competitors serving this market in the United Kingdom. If they merged without changes, publishers could face fewer choices. With fewer competitors, prices could increase. Service quality could decline. Innovation could slow. After months of investigation, the CMA offered a path forward. The merger could proceed, but only if Shutterstock sold its editorial business. From the regulator's perspective, that would preserve competition while allowing the rest of the transaction to move ahead. At first glance, that might not sound unreasonable. Companies often sell assets to satisfy regulators, but Getty viewed the requirement differently. Editorial photography was not a minor side business. It was one of Shutterstock's most valuable strategic assets. Removing it would significantly reduce the value of the combined company. Instead of creating the business Getty wanted, the merger would produce something fundamentally different. The board had a decision to make: accept the conditions or walk away. It chose to walk away. In late June 2026, Getty announced that it would terminate the merger agreement after concluding that selling Shutterstock's editorial business was not an acceptable condition for completing the transaction. The market reacted immediately. Shutterstock shares fell sharply after the announcement. Getty also faced renewed questions about its future strategy. The merger that had promised to reshape the industry was over before it ever began. But perhaps the most interesting question is not why the merger failed. It is why both companies wanted it so badly. The answer is AI. Generative AI is forcing nearly every creative industry to rethink its business model. Photographers wonder how to protect their work. Artists wonder how licensing should function. Publishers wonder where images will come from in the future. Technology companies want enormous datasets to train better models. Meanwhile, customers increasingly expect faster, cheaper, and more personalized visual content. The entire industry is changing at extraordinary speed. Getty has tried to position itself differently from many AI companies. Rather than allowing unrestricted use of copyrighted material, it has emphasized licensed datasets and creator compensation. The company has also signed agreements allowing technology firms to access licensed content under commercial terms. That strategy reflects a belief that trust and legal certainty will become competitive advantages as AI matures. Shutterstock has pursued similar partnerships while expanding its own AI capabilities. Neither company is standing still, but neither has found an easy answer to AI's disruption. The failed merger highlights another important trend. Governments are becoming far more aggressive about competition policy. Over the past several years, regulators in the United Kingdom, Europe, and the United States have challenged major acquisitions involving technology companies, media platforms, semiconductor businesses, and digital infrastructure. The basic philosophy has shifted. Instead of waiting until markets become monopolies, regulators increasingly intervene before consolidation becomes permanent. Supporters argue this protects consumers, encourages innovation, and prevents excessive market concentration. Critics argue it makes companies less competitive against global rivals. The Getty and Shutterstock case perfectly illustrates that debate. The companies argued they needed greater scale to compete against AI. The regulator argued preserving competition today was more important than creating a larger company for tomorrow. Neither argument is obviously wrong. That is what makes this case so significant. It is not simply about photographs. It is about how governments should regulate industries that are being transformed by artificial intelligence. Should regulators allow companies to merge so they can compete with disruptive technology? Or should they preserve competition even if that leaves every company individually weaker? Those questions will not disappear after this deal. They will become more common. As AI reshapes industries from software to healthcare, from finance to manufacturing, governments will face the same dilemma again and again. For Getty Images and Shutterstock, the answer arrived quickly. The merger is finished. The companies will continue separately. The AI race continues, and the next corporate battle over technology may already be underway.